I think it's important to also know that complaining about price is a habit. It
Yep.
doesn't mean they're not gonna buy. It doesn't really it makes salespeople nervous. There's the Whole Foods effect. Every time someone goes to Whole Foods, you feel like you have to tell somebody, "You're not gonna believe what I paid at Whole Foods." True story. People joke, whole paycheck, all that, but guess what? There's always a line at every register when I go to Whole Foods. People are still there. Is the price too high? I don't know. If people are still there and it's still crowded in there.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Mathews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
It's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie.
Ian, you handsome son of a bitch. Your hair is a little bit more modest this week than it was last week with your fresh.
It was a little spiky. I was fresh right out of the barber shop. What I've learned is I just don't put any product in it now, so it's a little less spiky.
There you go.
Those glasses are fantastic. Did you spend a lot on those?
Yeah, they weren't cheap. I told Nickel your hair last week looked like Michael Douglas in that movie where he goes in with a baseball bat with the convenience store, and of course Nickel does
falling down. That's a classic. It's a good first hour, good premise, and it just falls apart though.
It falls flat after that.
Yeah, needed a little bit better ending. Now, when you bought those big funky glasses of yours, did you negotiate price?
I did not negotiate price, but I did negotiate speed because I bought them when I was in California. And so I wanted them because I was leaving that day.
What's the last thing you can remember negotiating price down?
Oh, God, every day we negotiate price on a house.
Something personally.
I've been working with different banks on things in the last couple of weeks through work. So I always ask for that. I can't remember the last time I said, is that the best you can do? But it comes up a lot.
Yeah. Every customer that I work with right now is dealing with this. There's more shoppers out. There's more, especially in the real estate market, when things are slow and demand's low, buyers start to figure out they've got the advantage. They see that things aren't moving as quick and they start asking more questions. And so you can get into a world where you just stop negotiating and you just start giving every time someone asks because you're desperate. And I think that's still just a big mistake. And today, Frank and I have managed salespeople for 25, 30 years. And this talent, this skill doesn't change no matter what you're selling. It doesn't change based on industry. It's the things we're going to talk about today are kind of timeless, that you can go back 100 years that it worked in different eras. And we'll just start with a caveat of, what we're talking about today is not price of a commodity. There's a good chance if you're in sales, you're not selling a commodity because commodities are sold online now. They're sold with the website, sold a commodity. You truly don't have any unique features.
It's simply a commodity.
A Post-it note, an eraser, right? Things that have been made for a long time, and I could care less if it's made in China, Timbuktu, or Atlanta. I don't really care. It's a commodity. I want it cheap. That's why I'm buying it. I need it, but I don't want to spend a lot of money. So let's assume if you have a sales force in America, you're not selling commodities. Salespeople are too expensive to do that. You sell something that, let's hope, is differentiated. Now, some are differentiated better than others, but you're likely not selling a commodity.
And I think that's important because what we were talking about is commodities are really non-negotiable type of things. It fills a need. Commodities are copper, steel, gold, right? Those are commodities, but underwear, socks. It comes down to are my socks a discretionary spend item, or am I just getting something to cover my feet? And you look at it from those different perspectives. But I think you got to be real ballsy to go into Dick's Sporting Goods and negotiate on price of socks or on Amazon, and you kind of fight. But with discretionary items or items that require significant need satisfaction, that's where you can have a difference of opinion and price really comes out.
So it's interesting. Frank for a living buys people's houses. He acquires them cheaper than most people. He finds ways to get leads to talk to them about it. So he's always negotiating, trying to get the lowest price he can. If not, he wouldn't make money in that business. And so, but one thing I find interesting whenever I talk to Frank and he just brings up an example maybe of a customer who, let's be real, everyone thinks their house is worth more than it is, always, right? I do, Frank does. Everyone always values things more than maybe the market does. One thing that I love Frank is able to do is someone might come to him and say, well, I want 250,000. And Frank's like, yeah, it's a $150,000 house. They're stuck on price. What Frank can do better than the average bear is say, well, you got to understand you're in this zip code. In this zip code, here's the supply that's available. He knows the market. He knows what else is out there. He knows what he can sell it for, what he could do with the property. He knows the details. I think, and most people aren't into that level of detail that you are, market detail, that you can kind of quiet some of those arguments fast because you just understand better what the market is doing.
That's part of it. And like, we know specifically like what we can do, how we can execute, what things are going to cost. And what we've learned over the last 2 decades of doing this in Richmond is we really understand like what projects work and which don't. I'm going to give 3 quick examples. So we've talked here before about not buying something built of wood that was built before World War II. Right? Certainly before the Great Depression, because if it's that old and it's made of wood, it's got termites. So you don't do anything with that because it's a hard pass unless they're going to give you a significant discount because of it. That's one. And that's like product specific. Then you look at area. So we were dealing with a deal a couple like this morning, and it's a house that's up in Doswell, which the only thing notable about Doswell is where you go to see the Christmas light show in your car, which is really good, or you go to King's Dominion. But we've never made a nickel in Doswell. So knowing the location of it, and I have a saying in my office, if I have to look it up on a map, I'm not going to buy it. Because like if I don't know where it is, like it's not something I want to screw around with. The third one is hysterical. So there's a difference between buying and selling. So when you're sitting in a model home and you're selling something, or if you're in a car lot selling something, that's a skill set. And it takes a specific skill set. And I think I have the skill set that allows me to buy and sell, not just sell. But I have a guy who worked for us for years. He recently passed away. His name is Wes Hoagland, and many of you listening know who he is. And he worked for us, and he was not good at the job, like not at all. But he was very reflective. And about 9 months after he left, we had dinner together, and he goes, Frank, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about why I stunk working for you. And I said, well, what'd you come up with? He goes, I'm an amazing salesman. An amazing salesman. He goes, I'm a terrible buyer. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I overpay for cars. I overpay for houses. He goes, hell, I even overpay for wives. Like, it was great. So these skills are tangential, but they're a little bit different, right? And like, I can make people, I was telling Ian a funny story, I won't recall it here. I can make people a little bit uncomfortable sometimes because I'm so unafraid to engage in warfare around price or around service. I just don't mind doing it. But like my wife and people who work for me don't love it because it's part of me. So like what the other side of it is, you can't scare a hooker with a dick. Someone comes to me and talks to me about price.
I've known you 30 years. I don't think I've heard you say that before. That's awesome.
You're not scaring me with price. All right. So you bring price to me, like I am not going to whimper.
We're going to source that quote in the show notes of where Frank got that from. We'll put it in the show notes where he originally heard that.
I definitely got that at a bar like 20 years ago.
You had to have got it from your dad, probably. One of his electricians told him. I think number one price. If you're a sales rep and you find yourself always negotiating price, or you're a manager and you have a sales team that is always negotiating price, the first thing I would start with is how well do they know the competition?
Yep.
Period. Before I get into one script or how to handle a conversation, before you say anything, I've found that when I've had to negotiate on price, it's because I didn't know why my product was different and better. Why was it differentiated in the first place? So when someone tells me that our keep car alarm is too expensive, right? What does too expensive mean? I don't know what that means. So I'll say, what are you comparing that with? Well, I can get a dash cam for $99. You guys are $399 and you've got a service fee. And I'll say, okay, you're comparing two very different things. I've had a dash cam also in my car, and that's the truth. When we were building this, I practiced with every product that could possibly compete with us. First and foremost, a thief can just grab that, throw it out the window. Doesn't have an alarm. The cellular connection's not there. So maybe you will get the video at some point. So yeah, if you just want to catch some video and sometimes get it, maybe we're competing with you. But I've had a dash cam in my car, and I can tell you there's a lot more that we add. So we're just talking about two different things. And by doing that, by doing the homework, right? I had a club in my car, right? I had, and I used it, and that thing was so cumbersome and awful. I practiced with every other kind of product so that if someone brought up that we were too expensive, I'd say, compared to what? You'd have to buy 5 different vehicle thefts, deterrents to do all the things that our product does, and you'd pay twice as much. So what are we talking about? And it's the same. I work with builders, and it's shocking to me how little sometimes they know, especially the new ones, how little they know about their competition. You should be walking their models all the time, and especially if someone's always on you about price, and you can say, yeah, we talking about the Michelangelo model. Yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about with that competitor. I've seen it 4 or 5 times. The bedrooms are all much smaller. Did you know that you're going to get about a 1/4 acre less in lot? Did you know that the clubhouse isn't built yet? I really don't think you're comparing us with something similar, right? So you have to be able to show that you are selling an apple and they are talking about an orange's price. If you are not out and you are not walking around and experiencing and feeling your competitors' products, you have no right to negotiate price. You're not ready to, and that's why you're going to lose. Now all you can do is say, okay, I'll match it. I'll give you exactly what they're asking for. But the truth is, they wouldn't be asking you if they liked their product more. They would have just bought.
So the only thing I'll say is it's a little bit contrary to what Ian just said is most of the time you must know your competition, but if your product, your placement, if something is bringing you your advertisements are bringing you the wrong clientele, then you may not be talking to the right people. And I'll give a great example, right? So when we worked at Ryan Homes together, I drove you around all the neighborhoods, and we had this place that was it was nestled in this beautiful neighborhood. And when I brought you in there, the sales rep was literally talking to us about interest only loans. And you and I got back in the car and you're like, this guy's selling the wrong product, right? It was called Keswick Hall or something along those lines, right? And it was these really expensive garden houses. But we were Ryan Homes and we were bringing the wrong people into these particular units. And we had an awful time selling it because we had the wrong product, we had the wrong people, we had the wrong placement, we were doing the wrong things. And it might be, hey, you're in an area where rich people are, so it's $100,000 doesn't matter to them. That might be right, but it might be wrong. And it might be wrong because maybe you don't really have what they need. The people who merchandise the home don't understand who you're selling to. So you need to make sure you have the right product and you have the right placement and you have the right people in front of you. And then if you have that stuff right, then you have to start working on how do I navigate around or chip at the edges on price? Is it knowing my competition? Is it knowing specific things about this particular buyer? I was in my 20s when I was working in model homes, and I was mostly scared of every person I worked with. I would love to go into a model home now and work, and because I'm not scared of anyone. I would ask uncomfortable questions to just get it to point. Those are things that you have to kind of understand. But if your unique selling proposition is right and you have the right product and placement, then price becomes something else. It's not price. It's, I don't think it's worth this money. And that's a different conversation that you have to try to chip at and get away at.
So what does it mean when someone says your price is too high, right? It can mean a lot of different things. That needs to be translated, needs to be broke down. So I think a mistake that salespeople make is they take that as face value. They just say, oh, okay, our price is too high. And they go tell their manager, they think our price is too high.
It's it's confirmation bias. You hear it enough and it's oh, it just must be it's the price.
They must be right? And yeah. If someone comes to me and just says the price is too high all the time, I don't know, that you're not doing your homework. Why do I need a commission sales rep to just, repeat something that, the parrot something that they heard in the model? I want you to come tell me, what does that mean? What do they really mean? Now, it could mean I can't afford this. Yes. That could be that, right? So
and that has embarrassment around it.
Yeah, Frank and I worked at a company, Ryan Homes, that were first-time buyers. And a lot of people, they had debt-to-income ratios on their loan of 55%. I would argue they really do need a lower price, or maybe I don't qualify. I need $20,000 just to qualify. So we would cut price because they literally had reached their limit. But most of the time, that's not it, right? Most of the time, I don't buy anything without negotiating, right? I think of myself as a good negotiator, so I have to do it. That could be what the person is saying as well. I don't want to go tell my wife I paid full price for a truck. I got to say my friends are going to ask me, did you get anything off it? There's ego behind that, right? Like, I don't want to pay full price. I don't want to be a sucker. Or I'm deeply suspicious of big companies and how much margins you make on things. And I don't want to be a sucker here. I want to be good with my value. It could be I don't see the value. You guys are priced really high and I just don't see you as being differentiated. But my take on this is most people are just lying. I think because I lie a lot. I just bought a George Brett game used autographed baseball bat. George Brett was a Hall of Fame baseball player for the Royals in the 80s. I'm a big collector of game used bats. I love them. Brett bats are really hard to find because back then people didn't keep them. They would throw it away if it broke. And his bats are awesome because what do they have caked all over them, Frank?
Tons of pine tar.
Pine tar is all over George Brett's bats. All of them are illegal bats. It's awesome. And I was negotiating with a guy for the bat. And as my leading gambit, I told him, he was trying to sell it for like $20,000. I said, man, I love the bat. And I bragged on it. And I said, man, the best I can do with my budget is 14,000. I mean, that's it. I wish I could come up with more, but that's all I got. That's a friggin' lie. Like, okay, like I'm not telling him the truth. What I'm just saying is I don't want to spend more than 14. I want to get a deal on this. I don't want to pay a new record high for a George Brett bat. And we ended up negotiating significantly less than 20. But my answer of I can't afford 20 was a lie. That wasn't the truth, right? I hope people listening don't think that makes me a bad person. I just don't want to pay top price. So it's easier to say I can't. And he didn't check me with any qualifying questions. If you're paying $14,000 for a George Brett game used bat, clearly I'm someone with some discretionary money because who's doing that, right? There's people out there that would be their rent for the whole year. He could have asked a few more questions. Also, this like the 10th bat I bought from him. So he didn't do a great job of asking me a lot of questions. But there's a lot of lying that goes involved when someone says, I can't afford that or your price is too high.
So I was working with a bank just recently. And this also happened to me with a private school. So my son got accepted to the school we wanted to go to. And then the backup school came in like 10 days later. And they're like, he's approved. So we'd already accepted the other school. But I thought it was the right thing to do because it's a small community. I called back and the guy was like kind of hammering me. And he's like, well, why didn't you pick us? And I said, hey, man, you put the kid on waivers. Like you didn't approve him right away. It wasn't like a real decision to be made. He got accepted to the other school on day one and you waitlisted him. And then 10 days later, like I'm trying to be kind here. I called back because I thought it was the right thing to do. We kind of already made our decision and he pressed me again. And I felt so uncomfortable. And then like literally I just didn't say anything. And then he realized it. He goes, I get it. You're trying to be kind. You're trying to be polite. You call me back. It's a disappointing decision for you from my perspective, but I understand it. But that's a high level conversation. When someone tells you can't afford it, it's very hard to argue it. And if you really want to negotiate, you come in with, I can't afford. If you say, I don't really feel like paying this, it pisses people off. Like I've tried that too and it's flopped. Like I don't want to pay that much. Okay, well, I don't want to rent it to you or I don't want to sell it to you. So if you use the I can't afford it, it can get you out of jail free in most instances unless somebody is a tenacious salesperson or it's a place to start with negotiating. But what I would tell you is I always felt like I was in overpriced Ryan Homes communities too. It's just how we did things. We pushed the price as far as you possibly could. And if you would have a weekend where you sold 5 houses, they would raise your price 50 grand because they didn't want you to sell that many that fast anyways, and they would jack it back up. So if you found yourself underpriced and the market noticed it, that didn't last very long. So the question is, okay, if you think I'm overpriced, that means you're not getting enough value for your money. What are we missing? What don't we have? Can you see yourself in this home? Or what's missing from this particular product that I can get right for you, maybe with a different model or something along those lines? So if you can you can not get offended, and then you have the tenacity to get around it, that's how you can start to get at, okay, it isn't just price. It's, I don't think I'm getting enough for my money. I can work.
Love all that. I think it's important to also know that complaining about price is a habit.
Yep.
It doesn't mean they're not going to buy. It doesn't really, it makes salespeople nervous. You know, there's the Whole Foods effect. Every time someone goes to Whole Foods, you feel like you have to tell somebody, you're not going to believe what I paid at Whole Foods. Like I had 3 bags and I spent $200 friggin' dollars. One time Frank spent $600 and left the food in his car and got it stolen, had to go right back and buy the same order. True story. You know, people joke, whole paycheck, all that. But guess what? There's always a line at every register when I go to Whole Foods. People are still there. Is the price too high? I don't know. If people are still there and it's still crowded in there, I would argue the price might not be high enough. Like to me, supply and demand, until the demand goes down, what is that point that you're trying to find, right? So you just because someone complains about the price doesn't mean they're serious about walking away. They're still in front of you. They're still standing there in front of me, which tells me that they probably want to go with you, all things considered. So you have to kind of unpack, is this person just complaining out of habit, or is there really a problem with this price?
Keep going. You're on a roll.
So I think the other piece that you have to be able to unpack with a customer is, do you feel like the price is too high or the cost is too high? And most people are going to say something like, what does that mean? They're the same thing. You say, well,
No, they're not.
I'd argue it's not, right? If you were to go get your transmission fixed by a shitty collision center on the corner that looks like it's falling apart, yeah, you might pay half the price, but then when your car's broke down in the middle of the road, did you really get a good deal? You know, so you have to be able to kind of say, okay, let's talk about what you think perceive the cost could be of going with someone else and saving some money on the front end. And that takes nuance to be able to do that. But I think it's a nuance that's kind of lost with a lot of new salespeople.
What we talk about a lot in our world, and I learned this when I was at Ryan Holmes, is really figuring out what's the need behind the need. And I need a new house. Okay, great. Why do you need a new house? I want more space. But why do you need more space? My family's expanding. My mother-in-law is moving in. Like those are real needs, right? I'm getting married. We're having 2 kids. Like those are the things you have to work at. The best thing about selling, in my opinion, is you control an entire process through questions. And if you ask the right questions, you can start to really drill into what it is that you're trying to chase down. But the most frustrating part about sales is you can do all of the right things and you still could lose the sale. And you might lose the sale because even though your house satisfies everything that person wants, and it really isn't about price, it's about something else, they just don't like it. They like something else better. They want to do something else. They want to go to somewhere. Like this stuff comes up constantly. So you have to understand you're never going to bat 1,000 doing this anyways. And then you have to figure out, how do I chip away at this and give myself the chance to win more times than.
So when someone says your price is too high, one of the first things I like to do is say, thanks for telling me that. It's simple and it's stupid, but they didn't have to tell me that. They could have just thought I was too high and walked away. I appreciate you sharing that with me, right? And then I like to say, okay, help me understand how you came up with that opinion. I just like that. I usually use something like that. Or what are you basing that on? Who are you comparing?
Thank you for being honest. How'd you land here?
Who are you comparing me with? What are you comparing me with? Because I need to understand, again, apples, oranges. What are you comparing me with? Whether I'm selling a video program, Frank, one that's got me live coaching, or I need to kind of hear like, okay, you did a little internet research and okay, those are web-based video programs that are very corporate, very different than something I do. Do you care about personality? Do you care about having an actual manager hosting your classes? I'll start asking more questions, but I always like to say thank you. I find it disarms somebody because you didn't have to tell me that I was too high. You didn't have to tell me how high I was. You told me that because you want to give me a chance to get your business, and I really appreciate that. Now help me understand how you came to that conclusion. And then now I can ask more questions, but before I can even deal with price, I need to understand what I'm being compared against. And I need to understand how your mind is working and why you've come to the conclusion that I'm expensive.
So I'm going to come at this from the opposite side because I haven't been a salesperson in a while. I'm a buyer more than anything, right? I negotiate on the selling also, but every day we negotiate on the buy side. So what I hear is your price is too low. So it's the same thing that Ian does, and it's the same set of skills, but you have to ask the right series of questions, okay? How did you come by this? Well, I looked at Zillow. I looked at the tax assessment. Okay, cool. Now we can have a real conversation about how Zillow is flawed or how the tax assessment is flawed. I have an offer from somebody else. Okay, cool. Now I can talk about that, right? So what you do is, if you've done a good job of building rapport and you've done a good job of satisfying the needs of the person, they think that you have a chance to have a conversation with them that gets you over the hump, and they like you enough to be honest. So that's the first step, but that takes a lot of work to get there. But then once they start talking to you about price, now you can really hone in. So like in our world, we have a cash price and then we have a novation price. Cash price is the cash price we'll pay you out in 30 to 60 days. It's just a number, done. Our novation price is if we were going to put some work into the house and make it a little bit nicer and then sell it retail, but you've got to give us more time and you got to get out of it so we can do the improvements needed to get that number done. So we have two different options to kind of combat price, and we can drive our number up based upon your needs set. In either instance, you must prioritize the needs, wants, and desire of your buyer or your seller, the person who you're working with. You got to prioritize them. And then you have to just whittle away at the fact. So we are in the podcast business. So one of the podcasts that I like to listen to says, please listen all the way to the end.
Is that what this is? Is
Yes.
this a business? Isn't there revenue involved in a business, not just
According to
expenses?
the IRS, this might be a hobby.
A tax dodging scheme by two guys that need more depreciation
At
write-offs?
some point, we need to turn revenue into this thing, because at this point, like it's just gonna come out of my kid's piggy bank. But one of the things they say on this podcast that I really like is feedback is a gift. Leave us feedback, good feedback, bad feedback. It's a gift. So if you've earned the right for them to have a price conversation with you, and that's not they're slamming the car door in your face and leaving, but there's more to it, that's a gift. And Ian said it, you've earned the right. Thank you. Now really dig into why they feel that.
So now I've dug in, right? I say, what are you basing that price off of? Well, I was at Toll Brothers, which is a mile down the road. And, they have a very similar house. And here's the model that we're looking at. And we, kind of look through it. And, they're priced $100,000 less than you for a similar lot in a similar house, right? They say that to me. Thank you so much for sharing that. Right. And I'd never like to trash a competitor. Toll Brothers does a great job in that community. I've been there many times. I know the sales reps that work there. What is it about my house that you like more than them? Right. I'll ask that question. So why do you like our community more than them? I didn't say that. Well, if they're priced $100,000 less and you're still sitting in front of me, I can't imagine you would buy a house that you liked
Less.
more and you could pay less. That feels like a slam dunk. So obviously something's missing from Toll Brothers that would have you standing in front of me with a higher price, willing to pay that much more, right? So that's judo, right? I'm calling out the truth. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here if you felt like Toll Brothers had an actually better house, better community, and $100,000 less. You wouldn't be here in front of me. Why would you be wasting your time? You can save money and get a better house. You wouldn't be here. So I'm just curious. Why do you like us better? And now I'm going to get you to tell me, I'm going to get you to start adding value into my $100,000 because you're going to live here for 10 frickin' years. Don't buy an inferior house and then regret it every day when you wake up.
I feel like that's a very, very aggressive way to ask the same question that I would ask. Okay, on balance, I'm a big fan of Toll Brothers. I understand their market. Bob Toll's passed away, titan of the industry. I really respect everything about Toll Brothers. What do you like about us? Tell me about what you love about our community, because I can't affect the Toll Brothers. What do you love about this neighborhood? Is there something that drove you back here to talk to me again? What do we have or don't we have that they have over there? What's the comparison? Walk me through it. So in some of those instances, you might be able to fix some of those things. Some of those instances, you might not be able to fix those things. One way or another, we're both asking the same question, just with a different level of aggressiveness. And depending on your relationship with the customer and who the customer is, they will respond to each one of these in a different way. But it's the same thing, like help arm me. Okay, you came back. Why? You have free will. Why are you here? Like that's the question you want to ask, but you got to ask it in a more soft.
Clearly, I'm from Detroit, and I do ask it that way. So Frank's a little bit softer and kinder. He's from a little swampy town in Florida, down south. So also, like along those lines, again, it could just be a gambit, right? When I'm negotiating for a new Dodge Ram, I've had a Dodge Ram for 15 years. I'm buying a Dodge Ram. I'm not buying an F-150. I don't really have anywhere else to go. I'm just trying to get some money off here.
Yeah.
Like I don't really have another option. I'm going to maybe spit out an F-150, but if you ask enough questions, the truth is people don't just negotiate trucks for the shit of it. And that guy should know that. Like, I don't do this for fun. I wouldn't choose a Dodge Ram for $2,000. I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I keep my trucks for a long time. And so a smart salesperson would say, then why are you here? Like, if you like the F-150 more and it's cheaper, right? You're obviously here for a reason. You don't like negotiating with car dealers. No one likes coming to hang out with us. You must like the Dodge Ram. What do you like about the Dodge Ram the most? Get me talking about it and get me selling the value so that I start to come to grips with it rather than you telling me with your commission breath, get me to do it myself.
So that's one side of it. The other side of it is if you're trying to buy something, right? What I love to do now, so we had a boss years ago named Rainer Altman. Rainer used to come back to the office. He always drove Mercedes, right? Ian and I drive a Chevy. Ian drives a Dodge. Rainer was a Mercedes guy. But he said, I'll go to the delership because this is before you could really get a good look at a car online. I would drive it.
I could get a good look at a T-bone by sticking my head up a butcher's ass. Wouldn't you take his word for it?
So what he would do is go back to his office and use the phone and negotiate because it's easier to negotiate and to be a little bit harder over the phone than it is face-to-face. What I love to do today is you can text. Like the fact that sales reps text you, oh, you just walk right into my strength, baby. Like I can be as aggressive as I need to and want to be through text message. And it's so much easier than negotiating face to face. So what I would tell you, if you're in a model home, you have a huge advantage. Like those people leave and go home and call you, you're not going to be able to negotiate as well as you can face to face because it's been neutralized. Everybody has a level, maybe except for Trump. Everybody except for him has some decorum face to face that you could use that is going to make, it's going to soften the conversation. But letting those people out of your model and then trying to follow up them over the phone and have a negotiation on price is a losing strategy.
So last thing I would just say, and I think Frank and I are saying this in a lot of different ways, isolate. Isolate, isolate, isolate. Isolate your product, your service from price. And so a great way of asking this question is, if the money was the exact same, which would you choose? Which car alarm would you choose? Which home would you choose? Like if the money was all the same.
If my offer matched the offer from the other home buyer, would you choose us or them?
Yes. And then why? Right? So if they say, well, if the price was the same, because you're trying to get a better price out of me, why would you choose us if the price was the same?
Yep.
Well, your community's closer to where I work. I really like your clubhouse more. I'm a big golfer and you have golf. You're doing all the work for me now. And I'm saying, so you're telling me that there's zero value in that? And living in this house? You just told me 7 things that are better about us than the competitor. And you're trying to tell me that you put $0 of value on that? You would, right? So there's something, maybe I'm still negotiating with you. Let's say we're starting at $100,000. I've at least got you down to like 50 or 25 by asking those questions. Because again, the truth is, if they wouldn't be in front of you, if they literally have a lower price on a product they like more somewhere else, they would have already bought. They're in front of you for a reason. They need or want something you can offer. Be polite, ask a lot of open-ended questions, and isolate price from the features and the true value and benefits that you can give, and try to get the customer to say it themselves. Now, obviously, in 40 minutes, it's hard to do a lot of justice to all of this. We could have done a 3-hour episode, and maybe we'll do a part 2 on this. But if you just at least start with know your competition, don't panic when they give you price, realize they're there for a reason, ask great open-ended questions, and get the customer to share more and tell you where they see value in you, you got a hell of a lot better chance than someone who just runs to their boss and asks for that reduction.
Before we get into the part of the program, we ask you to mash the subscribe and like button. I'll say the following. The other thing you can do is you can ask your manager, how did we arrive at this price? How did you come up with a number? Let me understand it. Justify it for me. Tell me what's going on. That's going to be product specific things that we're going to come up with. Or here's our comp in my line of work that we're basing it off of. Or this is what we're going to sell it at. So what you can then do is you can debunk the different thoughts and feelings that are coming from somebody else. We did it because of our win rating or our appliance scores or our efficiency. Yes, if you're going to live here for 10 years, you're going to pay $100,000 more, but we have a SEER rating of X and they have this over there. Your electric bill is going to go up. So if you start to understand, like, why is the product set up the way the product is set up and how did it come from the top down, then you can have a much more confident conversation with that purchaser when you're in the market.
Love that. We want to hear from you in the comments. Please comment on whether Ian got a good haircut or should wear a hat for the next episode. You're probably not going to hurt my feelings. I'm too old for that anymore. So we'd like to hear from you. Don't forget to mash that like button and follow button. Frankie, great to see you.
Always a pleasure.